Shalum. Shalom and welcome. Welcome to the White Rose Family Channel. Here I want to introduce you to another segment of Bridges and Connections, a series of messages that describe a bridge that if we are able to yield to the major corrections that are coming during these final days, it will bridge the gap and bring us into a more unified, set-apart nation. In this segment of Bridges and Connections, I want to talk about time and Shabbat. Time and Shabbat. Why? Because Shabbat is mentioned during these end times. Why? Because we are in the end of days. In Yashar'al, we must begin to talk about what we are to be doing, what we should be doing, what is expected of us. And if you are one who seeks to do the will of the Almighty Creator Yahuah, I consider you my brother, my sister, my family. And I believe in due season, O Yashar'al, unity will come. And the bridges that exist now for us to grow closer to one another in unity will not always be there. And there are scriptures that tell us that these bridges will not always be around. And for some, we will experience physical death and miss out on the opportunity to cross that gap, to cross that spiritual bridge, to grow closer together because our egos got in the way. Time in Shabbat, my brothers and sisters. I encourage you to be prayerful and patient as you invest the time to examine this message totally. Those who seek to do the will of Abba Yahuah will appreciate the words presented regarding this subject. Stay with me. You see, end times demand that we be mindful of the time. Discerning when a day begins and ends will prove to be a requirement for fulfilling end-time prophecies and promises from Abba Yahuah. Do you believe that we will move, that there will be movement among Yashar'al? Do you believe there are things we must do? Do you believe Shabbat plays a critical role in end times? Well, I will answer these questions and state the case why I believe it is important. Did he, the Almighty Yahuah, work for 6 days and then rest on the seventh day? Well, let's get into some scriptures, my brothers and sisters. Genesis 2:1-3 reads, "Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their array. And in the seventh day, the Almighty One," it says Elohim in the scripture version, "completed his work which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And the Almighty One," it says Elohim in the scripture version, "blessed the seventh day and set it apart, because on it he rested from all his work which the Almighty One in creating had made." Is this described as Shabbat? Him resting on the seventh day? Who is the creator of time? Let us keep these words in mind, my brothers and sisters. It is Yahuah. Come with me to Revelation 21:6. Revelation 21:6 says, "And he said to me, it is done. I am the Aleph and the Tav, the beginning and the end. To the one who thirsts, I shall give of the fountain of water of life without payment." Revelation 22:13 says, "I am the Aleph and the Tav, the beginning and the end, the first and the last." You see, it all begins with the Almighty Yahuah. It all ends with the Almighty Yahuah. Keep that in mind. It was Yahuah who created all. It is Yahuah who is the beginning and the end. Now come with me as I continue. The Almighty Yahuah had a work routine. For him to say it was 6 days and the seventh day he worked, that was 7th day he rested. That was a routine. His work routine began with light and ended with light. It began with light, it ended with light. Forgive me. It began with light and ended with light. He's the Aleph and the Tah. Come with me to John 1, 4, and 5. It say, in him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness have not overcome it. Let me continue. Keep that in mind. Yahuwah is light. He's the beginning and the end. He worked in light. It ended when he rested. It was light. Many of us are aware that honoring and guarding the Shabbat is one of the commandments. To truly understand Shabbat, we must be able to discern when a day begins and ends. It is important to know that time in Shabbat will be a major component for gathering the set-apart nation, set-apart Yashar'al. We must begin to seek to discern what it would take to gather together. It would be wise to realize that movement will occur, O Yashar'al. Understanding time, people, placement are requirements for the set-apart ones of the Almighty Yahuah. Yahusha is speaking on the end times mentioned. Yahusha, in speaking on the end times, mentioned Shabbat, and I will share that passage in a moment. Come with me to Matthew 24:20. Matthew chapter 24:20. Matthew 24 is one that talks about the end times. And in the 24th chapter, you will see where the Mashiach spoke of Shabbat. He said, and pray that your flight does not take place in the winter or on Shabbat. Consider this, my brothers and sisters. If we are on the move and a brother stops on Friday as it starts to get dark and say the day is beginning, Shabbat is beginning, I'm going to stay and rest. But those who guard and honor Shabbat morning to morning continue until the morning of the seventh day and they rest. There would have been a gap, a distance between those two. And what if the ground, what if a tsunami, an earthquake or volcano? What if the ground split open for those who stop prematurely? What if those who are supposed to be working should have been working up until morning? In other words, I don't really believe they worked until morning, but they rested. I think they naturally went to sleep on the routine, the way we were created. And when we woke up that next morning, that seventh day morning, that's when we're supposed to rest, my brothers and sisters. And then the next day that daylight comes, that's when we're supposed to start working. If you look at the routine, it's a cycle. And I believe that the cycle of life. Now, I'm going to come back in just a moment. Let's read Exodus chapter 20, verse 8 through 10. It says, remember the Shabbat day to set it apart. 6 days you should labor and shall do all your work. But the 7th day is the Shabbat of Yahuah, our Almighty One. You do not do any work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates. Within your gates. It is important that we understand when the day begins. Let me read Mark 2:27. And he said to them, the Shabbat day was made for man, and not man for Shabbat. it is important to know that the Creator is greater than the text. We will see there are exceptions to the rule, and even a time where Yahuah, his word manifest in the person of Yahusha, spoke the verse that Shabbat was made for man, not man for Shabbat. My brothers and sisters, look in the mirror. Look at our physiological structure. Do you believe the Almighty Father created us to take on a routine, starting our day when it starts to get dark? We were not designed to work at night, but we are most productive during daylight hours. And night comes and then daylight comes again. Many of us don't realize, my brothers and sisters, you see, man has tampered with the scriptures. Just as man have taken out the name Yahusha or Yahuah and put Lord and God, just as man has played around with the words new moon versus new month, just as man has played around with the word heart, sometimes it means spirit, sometimes it means the fleshly desires. Just like man has manipulated the scriptures when it comes to the word soul, sometimes it's conscious mental actions, and sometimes it refers to as the spirit. I'm saying this to say, my brothers and sisters, I'm aware of all the scriptures that talks about evening to evening. Could it be possible that the synagogue of Satan flipped the script on Shabbat and put darkness to darkness? Let me continue more on time and Shabbat, because in these final days, we will see it can make a big difference of whether those who will be gathered and those who will not. If we can accept that the Almighty Yahuah is light and that he created all things, I invite you to visit the following passages. Malachi 3:6 says, "For I am Yahuah. I shall not change, and you, O sons of Yaakov, shall not come to an end." Every good gift, and that was Malachi 3:6. If you go to James 1:17, it says, "Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no change nor shadow of turning." So if he is light, and he is the beginning and the end, and he had a routine that began with light and ended with light, would it not be wise to accept that he, since he does not change, that he made Shabbat beginning with light and ending with light? Bear with me, my brothers and sisters. Now, many of you come with me here. I got my slides off. The second time or third time I've done that. Forgive me. It is important to know, in Mark 2:27, Yahusha was quoted and said to them, the Shabbat was made for man, and not man for Shabbat. Let us recognize the Creator, for at times there will be exceptions to the rule. Let's continue on time and Shabbat. If we can accept that the Almighty Yahuah is light, then he created all things. Light, and that he created all things, I invite you to visit the following passages, my brothers and sisters. And I read Malachi, but also consider James 1:17. It reads, James 1:17 in the scripture version read, "Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no change, nor shadow of turning. Throughout the scriptures, we will see that light overpowers darkness, my brothers and sisters. It is my position that we are awakened. As we are awakened, many believe those of the synagogue of Satan stole our identity and practices. In other words, if we all of a sudden say, oh, we're the true Jews, we're the true Hebrews, and they call themselves recapturing what was stolen, they'll find out that the synagogue of Satan stole labels but flipped the practices. What ended up happening is many began to adopt to Judaism, thinking they were recapturing their nationality. That word should be adapt, but I'm gonna keep going. I'm not gonna take the time to edit that. You see, my brothers and sisters, many labels were stolen. Additionally, teachings and practices were perverted and did not reflect the true set-apart instructions from the Almighty Father. He didn't want us running around looking forward on the sixth day for it to get dark to say that's when Shabbat start. My brothers and sisters, if we look at the ways of Yahuah, we will understand that he created us to work during daylight hours. He created the cycles of day. It was he who created the sun, the moon, the stars. It was he who allowed it to become evening and then morning the next day. But so many people look at cutting off that he who is light started the count. Light, evening, light, one day. So many have cut off because the way we were taught or the teachings and practices of those who have not discerned the ways of the Almighty Father, who are among those who thought the synagogue of Satan took their teachings and practices, and so they want to keep this Shabbat starting at night. Yashar'al, oh Yashar'al, a great correction is coming. Be encouraged. We will begin to recognize the difference between what is right versus what is stolen. Take a careful look around and witness how some among the unlearned and undiscerning children have habits and practices like the synagogue of Satan. Yes, my brothers and sisters. There are those who have taken practices of Judaism, thinking they're still in the original practice, back. Getting back to the routine of the Almighty Yahuah, I strongly encourage you to seek to understand that Abba Yahuah had a routine and he passed it on to us. Keep in mind, in order to have a routine, time is a factor. Does the Almighty One Yahuah give us breath and natural life? Consider these words. Deuteronomy 8:3 says, and he humbled you and let you suffer hunger and fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, to make you know that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the Almighty Father Yahuah. We live by every word. It is important, O Yashar'al, to realize that the ways of the Almighty Yahuah are consistent. When we discern the ways of Abba Yahuah, there is continuity or connectivity that line up with light. Remember, it is written, the Almighty Yahuah is light. Now consider the time given in life. It is important to recognize when a day actually begins and ends. It is important to recognize with each day we develop routines, practices, and behaviors that will make a difference in our final gathering. That is needful for us to recognize how a day begins and ends. Movement comes, O Yashar'al. I cannot stress it enough. I strongly encourage every individual pursuing the will of the Almighty Yahuah begin to recognize how he created us. Take a moment to examine how routines are before us, whether it is in just day-to-day living or work cycles. Also remember how we can see better during the day. Do you think the Almighty Father would ask us to do something and not equip us with the tools? Would he have given us eyes like an owl or just precise vision for working in the dark? Do you think he would change? He did everything in light. He developed us where we are most productive and efficient at night. And then he say, when it comes to Shabbat, start your day when it gets dark. No, my brothers and sisters. Allow me to direct your attention to the beginnings of life of Adam and point out to what he was charged to do regarding work. Regarding work. Don't be seduced because great numbers of people are saying Shabbat start in the evening. Don't be seduced because people are saying the Most High told me, the Father told me, my Ruach told me, Yahusha told me. Don't be seduced into embracing the habit of old that started out with somebody who thought they were getting their practices and teachings back from the synagogue of Satan. A day begins in the morning, and it starts again the next morning. Consider these words, O Yashar'al. Genesis chapter 2, 7 through 9. It said, Yahuwah formed the man out of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostril breath of life. And the man became a living being. And Yahuwah planted the garden in Eden to the east, and there he put man whom he had formed. And out of the ground Yahuwah the Almighty One made every tree grow that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. You think that sight was at night or daylight? And with the tree of life in the midst of the garden and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. You think that man had to be able to see it, that he could see it better during daylight? Let's continue. Come with me to Genesis chapter 2, verse 15. It says, and Yahuwah, the Almighty One, took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to guard it. Now, do you really believe that the Almighty Father told Adam to start his day working the garden when it turned dark? Do you honestly believe the routine of work was daylight but didn't change to night when Shabbat came? Keep in mind, time and work reflects routines or cycles of life. With these words in mind, Abba Yahuwah did give us times and routines to routinely sleep. So Adam was charged to work a garden. So his work began, his routine began, his cycle of living began as it relates to work at day. Did you notice that Genesis 2:15, that the Almighty Father instructed Adam to work the garden? Do you believe Abba Yahuwah rested on the seventh day, that he expected Adam to rest on the seventh day as well? Do you believe in order to work the garden, Adam had to be able to see it? Even when it came to naming things, was sight required? Consider Genesis 2:19, my brothers and sisters. It says, and from the ground Yahuwah formed every beast of the field and every bird of the heavens, and brought them to the man to see what he would call them. And whatever man called each living being, that was his name. To see. Do you think the Almighty Father was consistent, putting Adam to work, using the eyes that he'd given him? Do you think he was most efficient in naming things by being able to see them? Take a moment and answer this question. What conditions are best for working? Darkness or light, my brothers and sisters? Have this discussion with another or with others. regarding work routine. And there are those who want to say, well, daylight and day and evening, Yahuwah's ways aren't our ways. This is true, but Yahuwah's ways are consistent. We don't celebrate a day once a week when it starts to get dark. And then there are those who want to claim that they start counting the days every time it gets dark. But imagine being up thinking that your day started when it gets dark. So you're most active, partying or doing whatever. But keep in mind, Yashar'al, they didn't have night lights. They weren't using electricity during days of old. And to burn a candle or wood would be wasteful if you've been working the garden, the farm, or tending to the animals at the break of day. How restful do you think Yashar'al will be if they think the day started when it gets dark? The routine started when it gets dark. How restful do you think Yashar'al will be as we start together, Yashar'al, as we start to look at the work that is required of us? I'm aware there's a passage also that talks about them getting ready before they entered the gate. They got ready before Shabbat. That passage is saying they got ready before Shabbat started the morning. But because the way we have been taught and programmed, our comprehension levels will vary and differ. So some people think when it said they was at the gate and got ready before Shabbat, that meant they got ready because Shabbat was getting ready to start that evening. No, they prepared up until the evening, that 6-day evening, so that when they woke up that morning for Shabbat, there was no work to be done. Beware, my brothers and sisters, beware of those who are fast talkers, who think they know and understand what is being said. Beware of those who throw scriptures at you, assuming you are unlearned and undiscerning. Yeah, there are those who will throw scriptures and they just know you don't know the scripture. Beware of those who take advantage of the undiscerning and unlearned. I've seen fast talkers talk and somebody that's newly awakened, that have not studied or have grown to discern the voice of the Almighty Father. I've seen those just believe what that fast talk is saying. There are widespread teachings that have gone unchecked, that have wreaked havoc among set-apart Yashar'al, and the erroneous guarding and sharing and recognizing Shabbat is one of them. Great corrections have begun. The time is now to move away from erroneous teachings, practices, and behaviors. The time is now to embrace the correct methods for guarding Shabbat, and it's not lunar. And remember when I said Shabbat was made for man and not man for Shabbat? Though the actual count may be when we can discern that first day of the year and start counting every 7 days for Shabbat. With the exception, there are some times where there's Shabbat that is not in the 7th day. There's an additional Shabbat around feast times. But just as we witnessed the severity of Abba Yahuwah in Numbers 16 chapter, we will see similar things occur in our final days. I cannot stress enough that we will not be able to hit rewind, and many will not get a second chance, a second or another chance to get things right. Understanding time in Shabbat will prove to be necessary for fulfilling the promises of the Almighty Father Yahuwah. All obstacles will either be purged or we will come away from such behaviors as orders come, as we are ordered by the Spirit of Yahuwah who comes in Yahusha's name. Yashar'al, Yashar'al, there are so many that will look at Shabbat from darkness to darkness. Pray and watch. What happened in Numbers 16th chapter was there were a group of men who questioned the leadership of Yahuwah, who questioned why Moshe and Aharon were supposed to be the leaders. And it did not end well for them. And we can say, yeah, I read that and I believe that. There was time when many people questioned the leadership of Yahuwah, and it led to death. Many people have said, we can agree to disagree, or let's not get caught up on when Shabbat start. Pray and watch. The bridge is extended to move to correction. Embrace the connection, my brothers and sisters, towards unity. Or witness the methods in which the Almighty Father will execute discipline to bring about unity. So are you sure you want to stick with Shabbat? You want to stick with measuring time from evening to evening? If man has tampered with scriptures and have messed with it, and if the person who was controlling, quote unquote, the wealth influenced some of the changes in scriptures, what do you think is most important? The ways of living, the ways we work, the ways we engage, he who is the living Almighty One. Pray and watch, my brothers and sisters. Examples will be set, giving some of us a chance to cross that bridge into correction. Let us not be an obstacle, my brothers and sisters. Come with me to John 14:25 and 26. It reads, "These words I have spoken to you while still with you." This is the Mashiach being quoted. "But the Helper, the set-apart Spirit, whom the Father shall send in my name, he shall teach you all and remind you of all that I've said to you." The literal is he's speaking to his taught ones. The spiritual of these words, it goes beyond just those taught ones there. It goes to all of his taught ones, O Yashar'al. I realize that some of you probably say he don't know what he's talking about. There are those that are quick to take you to scriptures talking about everywhere they see evening, not realizing how they actually live, how we actually live, how we actually work. Let me share an experience with a fast talker regarding the ways of the Almighty Father Yahuwah. Stay with me. I realize this message may be too long for some of you, but if you listen this long, I'm almost done. Stay with me. For I think this message is important. And I'm writing this down so you can get the words right if you need to copy and show it. Some of you might know who this person is, but I didn't mention the name. But I had a conversation with an individual who is well known among many Hebrews, and some even dubbed him as the Moreh of Mores, meaning teacher of teachers. I must admit, this conversation occurred several years ago, but it appears his teachings and practices on Shabbat remain the same. He believes Shabbat starts as darkness comes on the sixth day and continues through to morning, and then darkness returns the seventh day. It ended with us disagreeing, but part of his response was Yahuwah's ways aren't our ways. What he failed to explain is how one is able to discern Yahuwah's ways. It is my belief this was the way to move on and quit talking about our differences, our difference. Allow me to continue. As I had conversation with this individual, he assumed I had not studied. He assumed I was unaware of the text. He assumed that I did not know that the scriptures say the letter kills, but the spirit makes alive. He assumed too much. It is important to realize that the ways of the Almighty Yahuwah are consistent. When we discern the ways of Abba Yahuwah, there is continuity and connectivity that line up with light. Remember, it is written that the Almighty Yahuwah is light, my brothers and sisters. This is a correction on Shabbat, on time, on the measurement of a day. That correction is coming, my brothers and sisters. Examine all things. Do not fall for someone who assumes you are unlearned and undiscerning. Do not be overtaken by those who prey on the unlearned or undiscerning. You can recognize them if you ask many questions, even more questions. They can be seen by the Spirit of Yahusha revealing what is hidden. In other words, he will reveal to us contradictions that people make. Gonna start a day when it starts to get dark and be so tired because the day when it actually starts to work, you abuse the night time to rest. You ignored the cycle of work. You misused the time to actually rest that 7th day. I will close by re-emphasizing that we were created as children of the light. We were created to work in the day. The Almighty Father Yahuwah's routine brings light. His living orders are mostly carried out in the light of day. Make no mistake, O Yashar'al, Abba Yahuwah will never expect us to carry out any task without equipping us with the abilities to successfully carry out his orders. When he ordered Adam to work the garden, he gave him sight that worked best during daylight. When he gave him orders, he made known to Adam that 7th day of rest. You see, my brothers and sisters, he will either work through us or through another working with us to accomplish any task that must be done. Remember, we have many members with different functions, but all are of one spirit. My brothers and sisters, seek to discern and understand why this message is important. Establish a sincere mind, body, and spirit to discover what the Almighty Yahuwah expects of us. Time and Shabbat are key components to movement and unity. Let us choose our position wisely. Do we cross and embrace bridges and connections that are before us that will bring unity? Or will we take another path that the majority of those around us may be taking, or a large number may be taking? Do we take the path of those who develop habits that were wrongly taught? What say you, Yashar'al? Again, I say choose wisely, because the argument of when the Shabbat begins or ends will come to an end sooner than you realize. The final Exodus, the final days, the 144,000 in great multitude together will honor and guard Shabbat, will recognize the times of movement, the times of getting work done, and the times of rest. Yashar'al, oh Yashar'al, my brother, my sister, I'm not here to argue or debate with you, but I present a bridge that I am compelled to believe offers truth and prepare you for the corrections that are coming. For there are many habits that Yashar'al has taken on. Some of these habits were erroneously adapted, picked up from the synagogue of Satan. But make no mistake, O Yashar'al, we will learn when the day begin and end. We will learn how to guard Shabbat as the Spirit of the Almighty Father directs our footsteps. Consider this day, my brothers and sisters, because when movement begins to ramp up and become more intense, some who are misguided with time and guarding Shabbat will be left behind. Will you be among them if you are physically alive? It won't be about excuses or pointing fingers. It's about what did you pray and seek to discern that the Almighty Father was saying to you as it relates to time and guarding Shabbat, as it relates to obeying his commandments, his living orders. Pray and watch. Proof will come in a way that will bring pain and regret to some, and joy to others. My brother, my sister, my family, I rest with saying these words to you. Pray and be encouraged, for the discipline of the Almighty Father will have his way. I come to you in the name of Yahusha. My name is Symmanayah, and I end by saying Shalum. Shalom to you, my brother, my family.